Brett Johnson, welcome to Sports Management Podcast.
Yeah, thank you. It's a real honor. I appreciate it.
Great to have you on the show. You went from analyst to corporate executive and founder of Benevolent Capital, and owner of multiple football clubs. So, what was the pivotal moment that made you shift from traditional business into investing in sports?
Yeah, 2014, I was tracking the growth and expansion of Major League Soccer in the United States and recognized that Phoenix, Arizona, which is one of the largest and fastest growing cities in the United States, didn't have an MLS franchise. And that set me on a path where I was introduced to the United Soccer League, which is the league that plays right below MLS. And at that time, United Soccer League and MLS had a partnership with each other. And often the pathway to an MLS franchise in markets was coming through the USL. So long story short, I founded a team called Phoenix Rising, a USL team, and so everything I do today was born out of that initial business plan.
What was it that you saw the potential? What exactly was it that you saw? Because now in the US, I mean, we have the World Cup looking, ahead of us, and soccer is getting more and more popular every day. So, what you saw something, I mean, over 10 years ago, what was that?
Well, I was familiar with the impact of the World Cup in 1994. Um, I lived in London and traveled around the world in my late 20s. Um, and as I describe it, I saw the religion by which the world reveres the other football, meaning soccer. And so when I was brought back to the States, I had a thesis that the United States was going to start to appreciate the beautiful game. And then I also felt that the United States over time was going to be more competitive on the pitch. And the women have always been outstanding on a global stage. But I still maintain that United States men at some point, I think, and hopefully it's this summer, but hopefully they can show up and go deep in a World Cup.
Hmm. How important do you think it is for the men's team to do well in this World Cup in order to drive interest for the sport?
It's important. Very important. They have to get out of the group stage for sure. They have to advance to the knockout. I think anything short of that will be disappointing for a lot of reasons. Um, yeah, and so God willing, the United States, goes deep, and I think that'll be, America is, as with a lot of countries, that really gets behind a successful team. So especially if it's on in our backyard, and if the men and if the right formula shows up, I think they can be very very competitive, and so they seem to be peaking at the right time, which is also very important, or they seem to be hitting stride, I should say. They've had a couple good results recently, which has given some confidence that was lacking before. So we'll see.
Yeah, it will be interesting for sure. And you mentioned Phoenix Rising, but you have also been involved with Ipswich and Rhode Island FC. How would you say that they differ? Because they, different continents and different leagues and different teams, obviously.
Yeah, after the success of Phoenix Rising, and for your listeners, one of my partners convinced Didier Drogba to come join our ownership group and finish his career with us, and we built a stadium in a great location. But at that point, there were two things that happened. One is we ended up striking a partnership with a large pension fund in the state of Arizona, and the pension fund agreed to support and back us on acquiring Ipswich Town. And I think our success at Ipswich was we bought a club that was sitting at that time in League One in England, was on the wrong side of League One. It was potentially staring down the barrel of another relegation. Um, we brought in Mark Ashton. We hired Mark from Bristol City to be the CEO, and I think that was catalytic. Mark brought in Kieran McKenna as our manager, and then obviously back-to-back promotions to the Premier League. And we're sitting now back in Championship, but when the ball bounces right, I think we have a squad that can take us back up to the Premier League. So we'll see. But I'm so honored to be involved with Ipswich. I'm very proud of what we've done, both on the pitch and off the pitch, for for everyone associated with that club. I mean, it's been the transformation of Ipswich Town as a club, the city, the surrounding area, the global fan base. But the sport's not for the faint of heart. But I think overall we've kind of been heading in the right direction. And we recently announced we've started to invest more money and take the pension fund out of the investment at a very good valuation. So they've done well, which is it's nice to put a win on the scoreboard, if you will. And
For
then
sure.
the last project is the one behind me, which is my Rhode Island project, which is another USL club that I'm involved with, where I, with my partners, we built the stadium that you see, and that's a real game changer. A stadium of that quality in that location is really in the United States. That's the future of the sport.
Definitely. So are there any learnings you can take in terms of running the club from England versus the United States?
You always have to put the best talent you could possibly find and give them the resources and the latitude to do their jobs. I've never ever got into this space to think that I can run a club. I never got into this space to think that I can make a decision from a technical perspective. I feel my responsibility is to surround myself as often as possible with really, really talented people who can do extraordinary things. And if I'm right, then things go up and to the right. Continue to go up and to the right. And if I'm wrong, then you've got to find ways to make changes.
Yeah. Multi-club ownership is something that's often discussed, and some find it beneficial, some others do not. And in Europe, for example, it's a bit more tricky. You have the 51% rule in some countries. So, what's your opinion on multi-club ownerships? And yeah,
I'm bullish on multi-club ownerships. I think we're still very, very early in that evolution. But if you have a club, that competes, for example, in the Premier League, then I think you need a club in the continent. I think over time the big opportunity is the United States, and I do think that the World Cup is all eyes will be on the United States this summer, and I think a lot of deep-pocketed foreign clubs are going to have interest in investing in clubs in the United States where they can again tap into the talent that America has. They can take excess talent that they have and give them better quality minutes. I say it all the time, but if, we have 10,000 fans, supporters consistently coming to our stadium behind me. It's very difficult for any league at that level to attract that size of a crowd. And so, said differently, USL can give younger players better quality minutes than any league in the world. I'm convinced of that. And I think the adoption of promotion and relegation by the league, the establishment of a Division One sanctioned league, the same level as Major League Soccer, so you have three levels of the pyramid. I think that's going to be transformative in terms of deep-pocketed foreign interest in the league.
Yeah, because you have been publicly supported promotion and relegation in US soccer. So, what commercial and cultural effects do you think that this will have for the sport's growth?
Well, again, you can invest in a United Soccer League franchise. You can, if you have a stadium of the quality that we have in Rhode Island, it attracts the all the requisite commercial sides of it: ticket sales, sponsorship, merchandise sales. We also are developing all the real estate around it, which is an important return on investment that drives the overall enterprise value. So they all contribute to each other. But again, I think there's a situation where a lot of clubs have surplus talent. It's very difficult in foreign leagues that have promotion relegation, and most of them do. It's very difficult to give young players the quality minutes that they need because if you're fighting for promotion, you can't afford to give a young player who might not be ready for that. If you're losing games, your fan base is not going to give you the latitude to say, "Oh, it's okay that we might get relegated," because I'm so thrilled that we've got young players that are getting quality minutes. They don't. The fan base doesn't care. They want wins and they want it right now. So I think it provides an opportunity for those clubs that will, at over time, invest in USL. And I'll be very specific, where you could look at putting players, quality players, in Rhode Island, where they're competing in a promotion relegation, getting incredible experience, but the inherent risk of being relegated is a very different calculation than what it is in their domestic markets.
Yeah. And I mean, that's something that exists in England, for example. They have had promotion relegation in quite some time.
Yeah, of course, I believe strongly that there's nothing better in sport than promotion and relegation. That's, as a fan, every game matters. You can't switch off. You're either advancing or you're at risk of going down. And I'm very critical of a lot of American sports where ownership groups effectively dial in every single year. They're not really looking to be competitive. They seem to be just scraping as much money they can and just getting by. And I think that's an affront to the sport. I think it's an affront to your fan base. And it's again one of many reasons why I've been such an advocate of adopting this at USL in the United States.
I understand that. So you mentioned the stadium behind you a couple of times. So I mean, it. I assume it takes a lot to get such a stadium built. And based on the picture, it looks like it's fairly close to a residential area and stuff like that. So, I mean, how's the process of building a brand new stadium in this case here?
For me personally, it was the biggest challenge that I've ever taken on professionally in my career. But that being said, now that we've opened the stadium, it's the greatest reward I can think of professionally in my career. So, to our credit, for an expansion, so Rhode Island was an expansion team. So we built this stadium around a brand new team. There are a lot of situations where other teams have been around in the market or playing in a temporary stadium or playing at a local university and then built a stadium. For us, again, I think what we've proven to other markets, and now you see countless markets across the United States specific to USL that are doing exactly what we're doing. So I think we've set the precedent that you can do it. This was an expensive stadium. It's $140 million, the most expensive stadium for a minor league team in the sport of soccer in the United States. But the early returns have been phenomenal. The results that we're seeing in terms of our revenue, and then the way the economics were set up, is that the city and the state tax all the revenue in the district, in the entertainment district that includes the stadium and the surrounding area, and that revenue is well ahead of projections. So it's so far ahead of projections, in fact, that the city that we are based in are actually refinancing those bonds and lowering the interest rate. So it's an economic signal that it's working, and I think that's going to further motivate a lot of cities across the United States that are in smaller markets to look at and adopt exactly what we're doing here. So I'm really excited because I think you will see in the next decade, you will see so many cities that are underserved from a sporting perspective, overlooked from a sporting perspective, I think replicate what we've done here, and it'll be transformative. It creates jobs, it brings the community together, and it's not just men's soccer, it's women's soccer, it's American football, it's flag football, it's rugby, it's lacrosse, it's concerts. It becomes the sport and entertainment capital for the region.
Yeah. And when we talked about Phoenix, for example, that was a brand new team. And so how, I mean, creating something out of thin air and, you need to get a fan base, you need to get people to the stadium. Um, then you need to create a culture around the team. How's that like?
Yeah, so just to be, I guess, clear, I bought the predecessor team was called Arizona United. So there was a team there which I originally bought, and then I brought in new partners and we rebranded it to Phoenix Rising. But the challenge with Arizona United was it was playing in a baseball stadium, and it was playing in a really bad location. It was away for them from the core demographics in Phoenix that really would resonate with the professional soccer team. So the real transition was we built a modular stadium in a very short period of time. It was like 51 days. And we built it in a great location. If you had a map of Phoenix and you put a pin in the best location, that's where we put that stadium. And that transformed everything. We were selling out every single game. And then obviously Didier Drogba, I think it's one of the greatest sports recruitment stories in history for a player of his caliber to finish up his career. At the time, it was a third division. It wasn't second division. It was third at that time. So really, really proud about what we've done. And again, I started to realize, for me, I started to realize if we can do this in Phoenix, I started to see USL as the perfect league to start to do this in other markets, in particular smaller or secondary markets. And that was really what drove, the business plan for Rhode Island.
Mm. And I mean, as we said, now probably this will be amplified with the World Cup coming up as well.
Yeah, I think the amount of new fans that are going to be created in the United States this summer, there really is nothing like the energy of a world-class World Cup. The whole world literally stops for, what is it, approximately a month, and just tunes in, and we'll have everybody in the United States will effectively, they won't be able to help themselves. They'll get caught up in this. And
Yeah.
again, there'll be so much great drama and stories coming from the World Cup. Small countries knocking off big countries, and so many great stories. So, and again, a lot of people will go for their first time to a game, and they'll see the culture and the energy and the passion, and if they're not already a fan, they'll be converted. And I've seen it on countless, whether it's in Phoenix or in Rhode Island. I've seen so many people come through and come to a game that previously were not soccer fans, had never been to, if you will, a football game, and they get hooked, and then they become season tickets. So it's just about exposing Americans to the beautiful game.
Yeah. You've had Benevolent Capital now for 20 years, something like that. And you have invested in sports, real estate, private equity, and been involved with the athletic brewing and Aura Ring, if I'm correct. So pretty well
Yeah.
known. There you go. Pretty well known companies. So how how is that like day to day for you to working in, because these are big sectors that take a lot of time, huge projects that you have done. So how do you schedule your day to make this happen?
So I'm blessed with an identical twin brother, um, and we work closely with each other. Benevolent Capital, we consider it to be our family office. So everything we do, we invest under the umbrella of Benevolent Capital. We invest our own money in every single. My money is in Rhode Island. It was in Phoenix. It was in Ipswich. It's in Aura. It's in Athletic. We write a check from our balance sheet in everything we do, and then we'll syndicate investors through our network, whether it's a pension fund in the example of Ipswich, or whether it's high net worth investors with Athletic Brewing or Aura or Rhode Island FC. Every single investment's different. Every single investor cap table is different. Again, our investors in Aura are different than our investors in Athletic Brewing. My twin brother, he leads the private equity and venture capital. So he's the one who spends the majority of time on things like Aura Ring, which frees me up to focus on sports and increasingly real estate surrounding these teams, and then the stadiums. The stadiums, as I highlighted earlier, the stadiums are the real game-changing element of the business plan. You have to have a world-class stadium, and it has to be in a in a very, very good location. If you check those boxes, then and you own all the real estate around it, you can almost guarantee the overall success of the platform. But when things go wrong in sports, it's usually because it's a bad stadium or a bad location or both.
Interesting. So how do you evaluate sports asset differently from traditional consumer or tech investments?
Well, increasingly, I'm very interested in the United States in youth sports. Um, my partner and I, through our fund, we invested in the largest youth soccer platform earlier this year, and increasingly, I want to look at more and more opportunities in youth sports. As I like to say, when it comes to professional soccer, the ball often has to bounce the right way to win a game, or to do what we've done at Ipswich. With youth sports in America, it's an uncorrelated asset, meaning that there's demand year round. Whether the economy is good or bad, families are going to continue to invest in sports for their children. the size of the market's only growing in the United States. But so long way of saying, I like rectangular sports. I like stadiums as an asset class. I like the surrounding real estate associated with it. I like USL, and then I like youth sports. But I'll take a look at almost anything. But I also like the entrepreneurial approach that we take. I'm not really interested in buying a minority stake of an NFL team at a really high valuation. I just don't know how much upside's there, and I don't feel like it really gives you much engagement or involvement, and that to me doesn't appeal at all.
Is that the thing that if you have a small minority percentage that you don't have a say more or less, while if you're doing something in youth sports or a lower league, then you have more to say?
Yeah, I don't want to be a passive investor. I mean, I treat this as a business. It's not a hobby for me and my partner. Um, but again, if you're a huge, I don't know, I guess if you're a huge fan of the Dallas Cowboys and Arctos or KKR now, I think they're buying Arctos. If all of a sudden you want to put $1 million into a massive fund and own some rounding error of a team, you don't even get a T-shirt. The valuation's so high. If they go in at $10 billion, like when's it going to be $20 billion? And are they distributing cash? Anyway, so it's just a different approach, and I don't mean to be critical of it. It's just something I'm not interested in at all. Again, I'd much rather buy and own the rights to a USL team in a great market, build a stadium, own the surrounding real estate, and then launch a whole host of additional sports in that stadium. That to me is far more interesting, and candidly, I think the far greater return on investment when you do it right.
For sure. Why is youth sports dear to you? Is it from like a health perspective, participation for like,
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think our country needs to make sure our kids are getting off the couch and literally playing sport. I think it's not controversial. You can learn often more about life in terms of playing sport. I certainly know for me personally, what I benefited from competing in sports, but I just view it as an investment class in America that's going to continue to go from strength to strength. And so increasingly based on, it took a long time to make our first investment in this youth soccer platform, but increasingly I'm seeing more and more opportunities that I will likely raise a larger fund specific to youth sports. And again, I feel like we have a passion for it. I think we have relationships in the space that will get us some unique opportunities. And I think overall, it opens up so many different things because it's a real estate opportunity. It's a recurring revenue in terms of the platforms that you invest in. Again, and there's a lot of different revenue streams associated with it. A lot more revenue streams, candidly, than professional sports.
yeah, for sure. And I think that except for the health aspect, it's sports are a great school for life, and you learn overcoming adversity and team sports and cooperating and handle losses and so many things that you can use later in life.
My son played 3 games this weekend, and he's 9 years old. He's my youngest son, and one, I was probably more nervous watching him play than I am, when Ipswich was fighting for promotion. It's just funny how you get. And then two is I can just see the way he handles a win versus how he handles a loss, and how he views his performance. Anyway, you're spot on. There's few arenas that's more valuable in terms of developing character and who you are than dealing with the highs and the lows and the overall adversity of sports.
Hmm. Do you have a sports background yourself?
No, no. I mean, I was a very modest player in school. I loved playing sports, but and I loved soccer, but I gave it up. I gave it up in high school because I realized that I wasn't particularly good at it relative to everybody else. I grew up in New York City. It's not a proving ground for professional soccer players, but I always loved the sport, and I was very pleased. I used to row on the river behind me at Brown University, in fact. So that was the Brown crew coach. So I raced in shells at Brown in eights, played lacrosse in high school. Anyway, I loved sports, and I love it. It's still active. I play a lot of tennis. So you're not going to find much bigger an advocate of sports and something in terms of, I think people need to try to play and be active for their entire lives. But I just feel like nothing brings communities together like sports. I'm very proud in the state of Rhode Island, they lost their baseball team. It picked up and left the state. And I'm very proud of the fact that my response to it was to buy the rights to a USL franchise, to go in and work tirelessly with the state, with the city of Pawtucket, and bring this stadium to life, to launch this team. We'll launch a lot of additional teams into the state. And now the state of Rhode Island has a world-class facility. We're on national television on a consistent basis. The optics of Rhode Island are changing because of sports, because of this venue, and because of this team. And that overall economic impact is staggering. The amount of jobs, the amount of additional investment that's happening. So from my perspective, again, I say it with total humility, it's one I'm very, very proud to be associated with. And now I'm excited to see how we can copy it and bring it to a whole host of other markets, certainly in the United States and probably beyond.
Yeah, that will be interesting to follow. Although you don't have like a professional sports background, you have a big academic foundation. You mentioned Brown, you're going to Pepperdine and then Harvard's President's Leadership Program. So a strong educational background. How do you think that has helped you in your career?
Yeah, I love the association I have with all the schools that I've blessed to go to. In particular, you just recognize the power of the network that you're associated with those respective schools. What I feel really honored today in terms of what I do is I'm an entrepreneur. I saw an opportunity in Phoenix, I made something happen. I saw an opportunity in England, I made something happen. I saw an opportunity in Rhode Island, I made something happen. And so, I guess what I encourage people more often now than not is if you really think you have an interest in being an entrepreneur, then take the leap. Like the first part of my career, I was running fairly sizable companies. I ran a global computer accessory company that had offices around the world. It was an incredible experience. I got to travel everywhere. The education, the experience was invaluable. But what I love more than anything is working for myself. I love the people I get to work with, the projects that I choose to pursue. None of it's easy, but there's nothing more satisfying than at the end of the day, kind of being able to choose your own course and try to make things happen. With total humility, I'm very grateful to be an entrepreneur.
I understand that. So what would be some advice that you would have for a young listener who wants to get into the sports industry?
I don't think it's ever been easier to get in. I mean, every day I'm reading about emerging sports all over the world. I mean, it's incredible. There's a professional wiffle ball league now. Obviously, there's the growth of pickleball. There's padel. There's both boys and girls, men's and women, flag football. It's going to be an Olympic sport. The growth of cricket, so it's just staggering in terms of overall opportunity. And when I look at the success that I've been able to achieve, it started very, very modestly. I mean, my first investment in Arizona United was $250,000. Now, that's a lot of money. I'm not trying to say, but on one side it's a lot of money. On the other side, it's not a lot of money when you talk about now how big the platform is. But so it's just a long way of my saying that I think young or old, it really doesn't matter. I mean, I was 45 when I first started doing this. So long way of my saying that anyone who's listening to this, I think if you see an opportunity and you research it and you've got a little bit of money yourself and you've got a network where you can raise additional money, there's a lot of ways that you can approach sports and entertainment from a very entrepreneurial level, candidly, and do some of the things that I've done and things that a lot of other people are doing. But the one business book that I always recommend is a book called Who Not How by Dan Sullivan. And in short, if you look at my success, whether it's Mark Ashton running Ipswich, whether it's my partner who built the stadium behind me, whether it's my partner in my sports fund, Bear Bakai, who is also the same one that recruited Didier Drogba to Phoenix, everything I do, you can trace it to a who. You can trace it to an individual or individuals plural that help to make things happen. So um, that's the difference in life. If anything you want to do is possible, you need to find the who or the who's that will help you get there.
Definitely. And I love that in networking is a big part. I like to include that a lot on this podcast. And with social media and the internet and everything now, it's never, you said it's never easier to get into sports, but it's also haven't been this easy to connect with people. And we are like
Mm-hmm.
3 or 4 degrees of separations from basically anyone on the world. So we should take advantage of that for sure.
No, that's right. And again, podcasts like this, the way someone can start to educate themselves, the way they can start to learn. I mean, I guess, I'll try to be a little bit more specific. If you're sitting in Croatia, and Croatia's got some incredible teams, and I know some of them are. I mean, almost every team in a lot of these countries, they're almost all looking for some level of investment. They're almost all looking for some level of passion, experience, so again, it's just a question. It's a numbers game at some point, and trying to figure out, what you're passionate about, where you think you can make a difference, and whether or not you can get something done. And even if you don't, that experience is probably going to set you up for the next time or the time after that. So it's, you have to. There are a lot of dark days that I had in this journey where um, things could have been very, very different. But I stuck with it, and had faith, and over time was able to trade through some very, very, what I call, dark days. And
Mm.
now in general it's going well. But again, I focus so much on the positive. I don't highlight the fact that there were periods of time where many of these projects had the opportunity to go the exact opposite direction, and I've been fortunate that they haven't. But I still don't take any moment for granted, and I still don't. I haven't declared victory, and I won't declare victory. I'll be as tireless for the success of the stadium behind me or other projects I've been involved with, because it's my nature, and because I don't want to ever get complacent.
Mm. Interesting. Do you mind sharing some bumps on the road and how you overcame them?
Well, early days in Phoenix, we were playing in a baseball stadium in Scottsdale, Arizona, which is a great location. Even though we were playing in a baseball stadium, we were drawing 5 to 7,000 fans per game. We lost the lease for that stadium unexpectedly. They called us up and said we couldn't play the following season, and they told us very, very late. And the only stadium I could find was in a location about an hour away. Phoenix is a huge city. It's geographically, it's actually this the county that Phoenix sits in geographically is as large as Rhode Island, the state of Rhode Island. So um, being an hour away in the wrong direction, I literally could not give tickets away. And I couldn't raise any more money for the team. Nobody wanted to invest in a soccer team in a baseball stadium in Peoria. It put an incredible amount of financial pressure on me. Um, and I had to rapidly go out and try to find new investors, which I did. And I convinced them to come in to the opportunity, and we shortly decided to change the name to Phoenix Rising. We decided to build a stadium in a great location because it was clear being dependent as a tenant, in particular from baseball stadiums, was not a good strategy. So collectively, the credit goes to the guys that came in, the investors who came in, who had the capital and who had the relationships to transform Phoenix Rising in partnership with me. So again, if those guys hadn't come in, then Arizona United would have gone out of business. And candidly, I'm not talking to you here today. I would have pivoted back and done something else and probably called the whole experiment off.
Wow, quite a story. And again, used to show the resilience and bouncing back from hard times that can lead to great success.
And quickly, the stadium in Rhode Island. Again, I highlighted it. There were two billionaires in the state of Rhode Island that owned the baseball team. It was a minor league baseball team. They tried to get a stadium deal done. They wanted to build a new stadium. They could not get that agreement in place with the politicians in Rhode Island, and so they picked the team up and moved it to Massachusetts. I naively saw that. I bought the rights to soccer. I went in, and we had a lot of times where the stadium behind me was not going to go forward, or was almost certainly like looked like it was going to be impossible. But to our credit, we stuck with it and got it done. And so one of the things I kept the faith that I knew if we could get the stadium open, it would be worth it. And that's proving out. But again, along the journey, there were, I mean, it feels like 1,000 times where the thing was not going in the right direction or was going to die. And one way or the other, we all collectively figured out a way to make it happen. So again, just a long way of saying that the success that I'm enjoying today came about through a lot of hard days and a lot of dark days that I'm grateful for.
I understand that, and a very inspiring story as well. I like to end on a networking question. We have talked about that a lot, and I mean we were introduced through a previous guest on this show, Matt Driver. So who from your network do you think would be a good guest on this show?
Yeah, it's a great question. Have you had Jordan Gardner on yet?
Yes, he has been on.
Okay, yeah.
Also in multi-club ownership.
Yeah. Jordan's a good friend, and
Yeah.
and I try to think who I like. I like Andrew Petcash.
Yeah.
Have you had him on?
No, haven't.
Yeah, I think Andrew. I'm blessed to be an investor with Andrew. He's got almost any time I'm taking a look at something, I ask his opinion on it. I think he'd be a great guest. I'm sure if I spend more time on this, I could think of 10 more people. But again, I probably in the USL. I think what Oklahoma City's doing, that's going to be exciting to see. Court Jeske, he's got a lot of experience, and or the owner, Christian Kennedy. So anyway, there's countless people I can think of in both USL, both domestically and abroad. But yeah, for sure, I think Andrew would be fun to listen to, talk to you.
For sure. I follow him on all different social media, and very insightful on LinkedIn, especially with a lot with data and sports and the integration between there.
Yeah, I think you'd love it. He's a must follow as far as I'm concerned. Almost everything he posts is worth spending time on.
100%. Brett, it's been a pleasure having you on the show. Thank you so much for taking the time to join Sports Management Podcast.
I loved it, Marcus. I really appreciate it. Great spending time with you. Thank you.
Thank you.